want to continue our series on Rebbe Nachman's Outpouring of the Soul. Rebbe Nachman, of course, was a late 18th century, early 19th century Hasidic mystic who had some of the greatest teachings ever written on prayer. Young man, did not live a terribly long time, but in the time that he lived, gave some of the greatest mystical teachings ever seen in Europe. So chapter 23 of Outpouring of the Soul is called Meditation in Bed. It says, King David was able to compose the book of Psalms only because he was very strong in meditation. The main time that King David would meditate was at night, under his bed covers. Hidden from the sight of all others, he would pour out his heart before God. He thus said, "Every night I meditate in tears upon my bed." Happy is one who can follow this practice, since it is the highest of all. The Rebbe also discussed the idea that when a person lies down to sleep each night, he should express his thoughts to God and pray that he should be worthy of coming close to Him and serving Him. If he cannot speak to God because his heart is too hard, he should still moan and sigh because he is so far from God. He will then be worthy of coming closer to Him. In other words, he says, failure is not a problem. If you fail, if you don't feel a closeness to the divine in your nightly prayers, under your bed covers, under the sheets, as you lie there, if all you can do is worry, then basically what he's saying is worry out loud. Groan. Form some connection to your vulnerability. And as we'll see in a few minutes when we talk about step 2 of the 12 steps of ecological recovery, basically, realize that only a power greater than yourself can restore you to sanity. Realize that you're insane. Okay, ordinary person goes through the day without much trouble, without much anxiety. Nighttime comes, it gets dark, and just like a flower closing up, that person quiets down, puts their head on their pillow, and goes to sleep. Sleeps, wakes in the middle of the night for prayer, which is filled with light, luminescence, and joy. Goes back to sleep, wakes up in the morning, and goes throughout the day joyously. This is the basic idea. This is what a human being most basically is and most basically does. We can't do that because we lose our sanity. Where do we lose it to? Basically, we lose it to society and to culture and to one another. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So the practice that you've just learned tonight, the 4 basic steps of green meditation, which I will review again very, very quickly now, are designed to recover this state of mind which has largely been lost by people living in modern times. And by modern times I mean post-agricultural times. Been progressively lost more and more over the past 12,000 years since the dawn of agriculture, the loss of our old hunter-gatherer way of life, and the increase in sedentism. Living in one place, in large groups of people, taking our bearings off of one another's values and desires, rather than fulfilling our basic needs from nature, relying on nature, turning to nature on a daily basis, which was the way we lived before. So, the 4 steps of green meditation are meant to reconnect us with that lost state of mind, which tended to open up, as Rebbe Nachman recognizes, in the middle of the night, when the mind is very, very quiet and the body is very quiet. That time when the speaker of the Song of Solomon said, my heart, it says, I sleep, but my heart is awake. I sleep, but my heart is awake. So it's a time when the body is very restful, but the heart is very wakeful. It's a time of natural meditation, sort of meditation retreat for every Homo sapiens on Earth. It just naturally happens in the nighttime. If you give yourself the full range of darkness to work with, you wake up in the middle of the night. Naturally, all people do this. In any case, so the 4 steps of green meditation are, first of all, to take your seat. Take your seat not just on a cushion or on a bench or on a chair or sitting upright on your bed, but to take your seat on and in the planet, to recognize that you are home, that this is where you belong, where you come from, where you live, where you're destined. So first of all, we take our seat. Second, we recite a sacred prayer or text in order to calm and center our minds and in order to express our intention to return to nature, to follow nature. Step 3, from that prayer or a sacred text, we choose one word as the focus for our meditation, and we recite that word inwardly once, letting the sound of it drone within us, like thunder, a rumble of after rumble of thunder on a summer day, or like the buzzing of a bee, 2 traditional ways of describing the way this works. 4, when the sound of that word has faded from our consciousness so that we can no longer perceive it or find it anywhere, and other thoughts, feelings, or ideas begin to interpose themselves in its place, we return to the word, saying it once again and letting it continue to remain the focus of our mind for as long as it will. We do not force this. There is no guilt or no failure when we lose sight of the word. We simply pick it back up again and repeat it again. And we continue this way throughout our period of meditation. What happens when we do this is that we find that there is a tremendous spaciousness within the mind. And that spaciousness is like shadow. It's a numinous area of the mind that is very, very close to that state of consciousness that we naturally come to in the middle of the night when we wake from sleep. We're neither fully awake nor fully asleep, but in a state that lies somewhere in between the two. A space of communion. Sometimes visions come out of this space, sometimes dreams. Always some kind of wisdom. We are communing with God, with nature, with ourselves, sometimes with one another. And so this way of meditating helps us to reconnect with that lost open channel, which used to be open in all human beings naturally, but which has tended to become constricted and closed off as we have begun living together in large groups, paying attention to what one another say and think and do, rather than to what nature is telling us and what nature is doing. That's the basic idea.